kansa saa tietoa arkaa siitä, miten elää nyt.
In the third and final part of our interview with Matthew Brown, the author of the Immaculate Constellation report,
the submission of this report onto the congressional record and its announcement caught people by surprise. Its distribution was allegedly very tight, and these unelected members on these congressional staffs that get to set the agenda for our elected leaders had to scramble and adjust in real time. They panicked. What I have learned is that we live in a dream, a carefully constructed reality. We make use of a science that is tightly controlled and suppressed and distorted.
Who are they? Why are they here? Why don't they show us what's going on?
I think I have a good degree of confidence that the reason they're here is us. I think life, especially sentient life, is a precious thing. And I think to some, it might be a resource. I think humanity to some level is a resource for them. It's been a very painful, costly process to find allies, but I have them. There's more of us.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't stop.
Right. You got to know some of these other whistleblowers who are still not public yet.
Correct.
But who are at least close to coming forward.
Yes.
Is there strength in numbers then in that regard?
Yes, and if all of us die or imprisoned, the seeds have been planted, more will come. I fly out to California and I meet with Michael Schellenberger.
Mm-hmm.
I told him, hey, I got a story for you. Would you like to chat with me?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had met him previously very briefly, totally something unrelated. And his work on the Twitter files defending, you know, free speech against a very pervasive and insidious censorship regime that our government, even before the Biden administration, had implemented, inspired me that he would do the right thing.
Logical, great choice. You know, that was my hope, is to have a lot of journalists working on this from different angles who you can trust, who are honest.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where your head's at?
Yeah. So we have a good meeting. I show him the document. This has been cleared by state. Yeah. I would prefer to maybe cut it down because it's pretty long.
Right.
But you get to look at it, and are you interested? The answer is yes. We're going to do a story. That's in summer of 24, I believe. Early summer, late spring. So with that in hand, and knowing that I had at least tapped Sask and Sissy, thought it was okay to move forward with that story, and then try to talk to House with the full details in the meantime before that story came out. It takes time to vet things. He has to look into me, just find out who I am, look into the details of what I'm alleging.
I know the George, and I know the process well.
So it takes months, so I got some time. And in that time, I, for the first time, get connected with David Grush.
Mm-hmm.
I would have a very enlightening conversation with him. And at his suggestion, he connected me with you. And that is how we came to meet.
Yeah. And I'm looking not to report on what you're saying initially.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking to help you achieve the goal that we're all fighting for, which is getting the people asking for it, the information. This doesn't have to be public. It doesn't have to be a public display. This is, let's facilitate these conversations. Yeah. That's where we started. I'm not really doing journalism work with you. I'm trying to just help the process go. That's how, that was my headspace.
Yeah, I was asking Gresh, I'm having a real hard time, A, meeting members themselves, and B, just even talking to anybody in house. Who's the guy to go to? And it was you.
Okay.
So, that was the nature of our meeting.
George and I have had a great relationship trying to help facilitate information, knowledge, and human beings for this sort of thing. So it makes sense. It was a good move. We did well. With David Grush, so George and our role oftentimes is to connect people. We are reporters. It is to break stories, tell the news. But really, a lot of what I was personally doing was trying to help facilitate the process they're asking for. At that time, we had a great hearing. David Grush, also Commander Fravor, who had to beg to testify. It was great. It was a success. Everything was clean on that hearing. This was a new thing, a new era. It felt different from the get-go, but the idea was we were going to have another set of hearings. I'm all for that. They tapped me to try to help connect them with people and George. And so we've had many calls through many process. And now I'm out there to have meetings directly about firsthand people with firsthand experience who can directly testify about this, whether they talk publicly or not. This is the information you need. So I go to have these established meetings. You and I meet, physically, and we talk about it, and you want to come with me, and I can bring you in, but I can't let them know because we're still trying to protect you, trying to protect your identity. So it was kind of like, we'll talk about it more in depth later, but a kind of harrowing experience. You were very nervous. I mean, it was like you're exposing yourself in those meetings.
Absolutely.
Right.
And just by walking into those offices or the buildings those offices are in.
Right. Right.
Very public.
Very public. So we kind of hid you in the camera crews, the way I say it, in that you were walking with us, but getting into the buildings. But I asked each member, I said, okay, you wanted direct people. I have one here to speak with you. Everybody needs to leave the room, including the cameras. It'll just be us. Is that cool? And each one, although they gave us wisdom along the way as we did our progression of getting you right in front of people to give them your quick testimony and some documentation. So that's what we went through. And we go in, and there you are. You're sitting in front of, somebody with position. I just want to know, what did that feel like, first of all, that moment where you got to finally get to them?
I mean, in the moment, it just was somber, serious. Also, nervous. I got like, so it's 5 minutes, but I only have probably like a minute to speak.
Bro, you were sweating. You were stressed. I mean, it was intense.
So getting most important information across and also establishing my credibility as fast as possible.
And I was making sure you weren't a fucking plant. To be honest, that was part of the process, is making sure he'd say the same thing to Congress, to members that he said to me. Not that I didn't believe you, and I had done the vetting, and I was there, but I want to hear you say it, show it, so you're not trying to entrap me. I mean, honestly, that's part of my thing. Man, we got through that, didn't we?
It did.
Yeah.
It worked well.
It did.
So you come out of that thinking, okay, all right, this is good. I made contact. We'll see where it goes.
Multiple. Yeah. Pretty strong.
Yeah. I mean, at this point in time, I'm very, actually, skeptical is not the right word. I did not believe that this would work in Congress, but I knew that the attempt had to be made.
We had to try.
You had to try. I knew that I alone wasn't big enough or important enough to shift the tides of history there, to shift what apparently the executive branch had decided, which was we are going to squash this. And anybody that tries to bring it up, we are going to, silence, cut out, and disparage.
They were asking for whistleblowers. And there we are. And he is blowing the whistle on this. And that's what they were asking for. So for me, it was a big win for them to meet you face to face. Because I knew down the line, if this was going to progress, look, you would have testified. Let's get real clear on this. They were asking for it. You would have testified. You were not asking to testify. You're saying, here's the little piece that I have. But you said in that room that you would if requested.
I would if asked, and I did not want to do it at the upcoming hearing.
Of course.
Because that was very close, and I in no way felt ready to do that.
But you put the ball in their court. I did. You said you would. They didn't ask, right? And we got to, there's a whole thing about that. But just you really put it out there.
I did.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it'll take quite a change in our present circumstances for anybody to ever testify under oath on this subject again in a way that would make a difference. I think they know the power of, in an open hearing, putting your hand on the Bible and swearing that you're going to speak nothing but the truth, and doing so. It's symbolic, and it's very valuable, and that is why I believe that they are desperately attempting to deny.
Well, and
control it.
that's what we saw. We don't got to rehash it. That's what we saw at the second hearing. Absolutely controlled. Representative Burchett testified to it by saying it publicly that the executive branch did limit what could be said and by who. And George has brought that up a bunch. When, so I agree.
The executive branch in the halls of Congress determining what the business of Congress is, and not even through the courtesy of a phone call to the vice president or the president, but through minions and stooges.
Mm-hmm.
Unelected, probably CIA.
Yeah, well, certainly. Yeah.
When you hear about the lineup for the hearing that was held, you got to be feeling pretty good about it.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be a witness. He's going to talk about Immaculate Constellation.
And not just a witness on his own next to Lou Elizondo, Tim Gallaudet, and this guy I've never heard of before, but seems nice, Mike Gold.
Mike Gold.
Mike Gold.
Great.
They're thinking, all right, good. All right. It's going to come out.
We were all punked.
Did you know exactly what was going to be discussed by the Schellenberger at that point? You can guess.
I mean, I knew it was going to be, me and my words and my report.
And because the two of you met with them the night before the hearing.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I had met with Michael to give him the story. It seemed like there's no mystery here why they're bringing him.
Yeah, there was a lot before that too, but I have a 2+ month process of prompting, trying to get something on congressional record, knowing that what your testimony was valuable. It wasn't just like spur of the moment. There is a process. It was 3 major meetings that occurred to validate the information that you provided to me. It's not just like, so getting on something on congressional record is a little bit more tricky than people think. They have to have time with it. So I very slowly, with your authorization, over those months, had in-person meetings, not just you being there, but then working with them, showing them the information so they had time to vet it. They're worried about getting scammed too, right? So it was a process. It was a process that for me was very arduous. Personally,
there were a lot of phone conversations that we sat in on with House staff, and it got curiouser and curiouser as the people who were in on these conversations with us on the other
national
end.
Security folks just popping in on a meeting that I'm supposed to be having with them. They wanted to know what assets George and I have to visually show them. We were going to provide them. They were saying at one point that we were going to testify, and I said, "Cool." And I want to give something substantial to the American public. This is what I want to give them. Well, at some point they're trying to get us into a skiff, and our federal lawyer said, do not go in there because they will immediately classify all that information that allegedly you may have access to, and then you're never reporting on it. So we went through our own journey. We don't have to get into that in this discussion, but there was a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. But hooray, congressional record, your report, which is misrepresented when Nancy Mace talked about it big time. But we're happy. And I was stoked to have Michael Schellenberger, who at that time I was like, this is great. He's going to be a good ally moving forward, and he's the right man for the job. Yeah, but bottom line, no matter the shenanigans involved and how revealing that second hearing was about the control mechanisms in place about UAP, I was elated, and I think so were you, that without having to put your face out to the public and endure all of that like you're doing and going to experience now, your testimony got put on the congressional record. That was a big win.
Yeah. There was a bit of a personal pleasure too. I, at the very least, got to see someone else be scared for once.
Who was scared?
Not the bosses of the people who interfere in Congress, but the minions themselves, because their bosses didn't tell them what was going to happen.
Can you dive a little deeper into that?
Well, by all appearances, both behind the scenes and in front of them, the submission of this report onto the congressional record and its announcement caught people by surprise. Its distribution was allegedly very tight, and these unelected members on these congressional staffs that get to set the agenda for our elected leaders had to scramble and adjust in real time. They panicked.
See, having something on congressional record is different than just putting out a news report. News report goes away, one click, done. This is much bigger. And I saw that too. So it was a big move, and it was filled with pleasure to see. It stirred shit up.
Yes.
You know, you said it before, and I want to drill this home. At one time, saying these words, putting these words in text, saying them over the phone, there was repercussion for that at one time.
I understand it.
As I understand it as well.
Mm-hmm.
But so it gets published, and I was stoked. I remember that day I went on a news show, and I was like, I had nothing. I didn't do it. Somebody put it out. I mean, you let me know that it was going to be public, but I was like stoked to hear those words mentioned. But getting it on record, watching the tables turn was filled with pleasure.
Yeah. No long-term outcome, but
Not
this
yet.
is a fight without many wins. So
Okay.
take the small personal pleasures.
As this news travels, is there blowback? Do you suddenly realize, hey, something might happen to me as a result of this getting out there? You're happy that it's finally there on the record, but then does that change over the days or weeks afterward?
Not so much. I was definitely under no illusions at this point. Nothing would functionally change, but what mattered was, adding new fuel to the fire to what looked like was a dying cause.
Is there blowback for you personally? Does anybody call you and say you shouldn't have done that? Or does somebody figure out who you are? Is there an attempt to identify who you are?
I'm sure there were attempts, and I'm sure some of them were successful, but I mean, I've been known to internal security undoubtedly since almost day one.
Here's the deal. People misunderstand because it was misrepresented in Congress. This is not a Pentagon paper, a product.
Yeah.
You are the author of what the world knows as the Immaculate Constellation report. This is a report based upon a field report, based upon your investigation, what you've discovered, trying to do the right thing, bringing it to the people that need to see it because it was so hard, even though they're asking for you, to get it to them. So just to be really clear for fundamentally for people, Immaculate Constellation report, what was submitted into Congress onto congressional record, which we fought together to get that done, is your words. It's not some government Pentagon report like it was misrepresented by Nancy Mason Congress.
Not at all. All my words, 100% authored by me.
One of the striking things for me in kind of talking with you through this process, but also just reading the final report that went on to congressional record, I mean, you list and label cuboid formation of metallic orbs. These are UFOs, right? So fast mover observed transiting over sensitive facilities. Intelligence vessels positioned to collect on reproduction vehicle. Equilateral triangle UAP tails unwitting vessel. This one struck me. Large disk using clouds as concealment. And why that struck me is because George and I have been exposed to a lot over the years. And I think I know, and other people know, what you're referencing in here. It sounds like you watched a video. You said on U.S. government networks there exists OPIR footage. What is it?
Overhead persistent infrared. That might be a correction. That satellite may not have been an OPR satellite after all.
But this one, and you keep going on, a boomerang shaped, jellyfish shaped, tic-tac shaped. You're not just making these words up. Like, you saw visual evidence of these.
Yeah.
And so did have George Knapp and I. We have been exposed to, along the years, a lot of visual evidence. But this one, the large disc in the clouds, just explain to me seeing something like that.
Well, number one, it's pretty striking because you're watching it from space. It's always cool to watch satellite feeds. And that's just something the general public doesn't get to see. And then, too, just the size of it, it was immediately like, whoa, what the hell is that? It was in, I assume, infrared, black hot for that one. So the white clouds around it. And yeah, it's almost playful in its activities, or like it was startled. But it's one of those cases where I look at it and, it looks like a flying saucer, but it might be one of the things that maybe that was actually one of ours. In the wrong place at the wrong time.
What do you mean it looks startled? What does that mean?
It's just looking at an area over the ocean is what it appears. And this thing just comes trundling along from like underneath the cloud cover, comes up. And then right when it's like almost center frame, it scoots off to the side and like tries to get out of
Like it comes into us and going, oops, somebody spotted me. I can get out of here.
Exactly. It was visibly, that's the feeling it had.
That was kind of haunting to me. We checked when we were with some friends recently. I never know. We are not qualified to know if some of the things we've been exposed to are legitimate or not. But when I get confirmations like you describing this and other people we've just recently talked to, I know that footage exists. We've been exposed to it. And I think that's a nice piece to the puzzle for the public.
What about jellyfish?
Yeah, so I mean, I only heard that term once it was released. Similar stuff I had seen on the inside, and it was often labeled like a floating brain or an organic or irregular shape, so that's why it's in there. So yeah, I've seen multiple instances of irregular shaped things that look thematically similar to the jellyfish. I've never seen the jellyfish video itself. But seeing those, there's an instance of one in Southcom, right at our border, crossing what appears to be into United States airspace.
Let me get clear.
Undetected.
From Mexico?
I believe from one way or another. I can't recall the compass orientation right now, but I would assume into the U.S., which is why it was interesting.
Let me get clear on a couple of things. Well, first of all, people like yourself, it's happened with Lazar, happened with Greg, like every word you say, you're worried about if your memory isn't perfect, this or you've done a great job of really curating, making sure what you said is accurate. It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to not remember the exact equipment that did this or that in your brain. Just so you're saying the word jellyfish, you first heard kind of when George and I released that thing into the public media, jellyfish, although it was described differently for different assets you've seen on servers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That term was describing something I had seen before.
Okay. But we just called it jellyfish because that's what it was told to us. They had two. Spaghetti monster was our other option. It was said to, jellyfish works. But that morphology or shape is something that consistently you had seen within these classified servers.
Yes, in other contexts outside of the Middle East.
Okay.
You ever see any videos where we're engaging with them? Either we're chasing them, our warplanes or something, or going after a disc, a saucer, an orb, or something like that?
So I've seen videos and read reports of engagements, but not live, like we're not shooting them, but engagements where, either we are trying to intercept something, read lots of reports on that, and from other countries as well, trying to intercept these things. Each report will have its own shape that they're chasing, but guess what they are. But then, when there's an example in there off the East Coast of what would be classed as an engagement, where we're up there protecting our airspace and encountering these things and interacting with them in a way that we would consider hostile. And if it was anything else, if we had a Russian bomber patrol that had a fighter escort and they tried to box our fighters out, force them down from the wash, the jet wash, that would be a hostile engagement. But for whatever reason, we're not describing it that way internally.
So we're sending a plane up to take a look.
Yeah.
Maybe get a better look or even some imagery, but not to engage, meaning shoot it down, shoot a Sidewinder at it or something.
Right. I would, I'm not going to be able to say that's never happened, but I have not seen them engaged, with weapons.
Well, it recently happened, and we became aware of one. More details on that, I think, we'll report on. And what happened was the missile, quote, bounced off. And so they're trying to figure that out. But, what does that imply? Like a field around it? I don't know. We also released one that was so embarrassing to release. We had to call it looked like Kermit the Frog. I think we called it Syria Dome UAP. But the reason we released it, because verified, we tried to engage it. We tried to shoot it. And I believe we hit it, but we don't know the aftermath or what happened to that. We reported on that is actual information, even though it looks so silly, we had to report it because it's UAP. So from the recent event to that, it brings me back to what you said, George, about the official orders back in Russia back in the day. Tell me that real quick again.
So the Russian military, from 78 to 88, they had a standing order for every unit in this vast Soviet military empire any UFO or ball of light, flying saucer, anything weird in the sky. It had to all be investigated. And the guy who was in charge of that program at the Ministry of Defense said that there had been several dozen instances where they sent planes, warplanes, to intercept these UFOs, and they couldn't keep up with them. They just poof, they're gone. But in 3 cases, they tried to engage and shoot them down. 3 cases where those planes, the Russian warplanes, crashed. 2 of the pilots died, and after the second pilot died, they issued an order, leave them alone. Because in the words of the commander of the Russian Air Force, they said they have incredible capacities for retaliation. So
Why so many shapes? Why do you think so many shapes? I used to think flying saucers were discs. I used to think UFOs were flying saucers. That's what I used to think. Now, after knowing this guy for so long, reading all the reports, getting whistleblowers, talking with him, why so many shapes?
I think part of it's sometimes these might be, made to purpose. So, if they're only making it for a specific use case scenario, they'll design it to excel in that mission.
I guess
Not
we do
another.
that. We do
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
We have bombers that look a certain way, and then we have reconnaissance vehicles that look another way. I guess.
Star Wars, they have giant cruisers, and they have the X-fighters, for different jobs. Would you be surprised to hear about cases where these things, large objects, come out of the ocean or go back into the ocean? Does that sound familiar?
I would not be surprised. I have not seen very large objects go in and out of the water, but I've definitely seen small to medium-sized UAPs either going into the water and disappearing, or going in and out, or coming out of the water.
Fact.
And on video and described.
There's a video and described any kind of change of inertia.
Yes, sir.
Multiple videos. Yeah. Any kind of, we have also been exposed to some. Let me ask you this: any change of any inertial effect, any change of speed or motion?
That's like the water wasn't there.
It's like the gold for anybody who wants to see. I wonder if it's ever enough. Like, is video ever enough? Like, what is enough for people to wrap their heads that there's a real issue here? I don't know. I don't think one video is ever going to change. I want to talk to you about signals, intelligence, SIGINT, right? That was a big part of your investigation. Can you explain that and why?
Yeah, so it was one of the sources where, we have a fantastic intelligent posture. It's not as data heavy, so it's just much easier to move around and access and read through quickly. Mm-hmm. Now, it's one of the shortest sections in there because, in my mind, these are incidental collections, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure we are specifically collecting signals intelligence on this, but my research was not in those data streams.
Vast majority is accidental kind of capturing of
exactly of other countries, other militaries' activities related to this, and their observations related to this, or sometimes historic things that we acquire that happen to pop up in the SIGINT channels. So the reason there's less detail there, though, is we're using those every day. We rely on them a lot, and they're very fragile, very sensitive, and diplomatically sensitive as well.
The things you're describing that you'd seen that are in this report are mostly things there's in the Pacific and the Atlantic. There's over Africa. They're foreign things, something coming over the border from Mexico. What about cases in the U.S.? Is NORAD, is that just a black hole for these kinds of images? So something that happens over our country, you don't even get to see it.
Yeah, Northcom is a black hole. Just legislatively, there's legal things keeping us,
The military and the IC, supposedly, from looking at the states. That's supposed to be a domestic law enforcement mission in general. You got to have a very good reason to be looking at, over your neighbor's fence, basically. This is I think it's, it's functionally a barrier to prevent accidental or just curious people, doing things they shouldn't in our homeland, which would actually get them in trouble. It's one thing if we're doing it, some foreign country. It's one thing if we're crossing the line and spying here without a specific mission.
The complaint we hear from UFO world is, I don't care about these blurry images. These things are blurry. The Tic Tac, to me, that was a fantastic image. You know, you're not sending Dave Fravor up with an IMAX camera to make a movie. These are captured on sensor systems, the same as like 2019, the USS Omaha, pitch black, 100 miles off the coast of Southern California. They're picking up an image that they follow for an hour on a thermal camera. They're blurry, but they're amazing images. I mean, is there a reason that the public doesn't see crystal clear movie quality images of UFOs?
Yeah, I think unfortunately it's a product of our education system, a lack of curiosity in general about the world. There's a lot of arrogance in our academy, and that arrogance filters down to our citizens. We know the world. We haven't figured out. There's nothing really left to discover here. And I think in general, there's so much misinformation, stigma, mythology that people grow up with that lead them to just automatically categorize any of this as just, false, fake, not real, misidentified.
Mundane. Yeah.
But I mean, getting an image on a thermal camera 100 miles out to sea in total blackness sounds pretty cool to me. That sounds like an amazing accomplishment. But are there additional reasons that have been maybe discussed behind closed doors, force fields of some sort around these craft that make things blurry, even for from a good camera image? Do you know?
Probably a very real explanation for why certain shapes are harder to observe than others. I think, whether it's active camouflage and like the skin of the vehicle itself, that definitely seems to be in play, or a field like you describe. I've seen evidence of fields around crafts.
Yeah, some things we've seen have looked so bizarre, it makes no sense to my brain. It is possible, I've heard that from a number of whistleblowers at different levels, that what you're seeing could just be a part of a greater structure, So it could be something like that, speculating.
We had this Chinese balloon thing that happened, 3 different objects, UFOs, 3 UFOs shot down in a couple of week period. And then we saw people use that, the usual people in the media world who bash this stuff, who tried to blame it on the UAP task force. The reason NORAD is not looking for something like this, because the UAP task force confused the whole situation. It's as if NORAD would only look for things that look like planes, bombers, or missiles. So we didn't look for UFOs. Is it possible that we didn't look for UFOs because it didn't really want to find them? Or is it we were looking for UFOs and just the public and most of the government never saw?
We've always been seeing these things with things like radar. So it's part of standard operating procedures to deny this and to not acknowledge it.
So we've been seeing it. We're just pretending not to see it.
Absolutely. Our public institutions like the FAA or similar in the even local context, it's not allowed to be discussed, and there might even be technical measures in the technology of this place that just prevents it from even popping up on a screen.
Right.
Like Tic Tac. So that happened for 2 or 3 weeks. They could get a little glimpse of it on these systems, really sensitive, advanced Navy systems at the time, and then poof, it fell off. At the USS Omaha, they had 12 or 14 of these things zipping in. You'd see them on the radar screen, and then poof. If they didn't want to be seen, we weren't seeing them. I guess it could be that as part of an explanation. If they don't want to be detected on radar, they have ways to avoid radar, whoever they are.
Yeah, that's a dangerous dynamic to have willful ignorance on our side and their capability to at least attempt to evade detection at any time on theirs. If we are so certain they are friendly, why is this a secret?
I have one more.
Yeah.
Drones. So 60 Minutes just did a big piece on drones. Langley Air Force Base had these things flying over it for 17 nights in a row, stayed in New Jersey for weeks at a time, sensitive bases, restricted airspace at US, UK bases in Britain for days and days. We can't track these things coming in. We can't track them when they leave. We can't shoot them down. We don't know where they're from. But don't worry, they're just drones. They're foreign surveillance drones. Give me your take on that whole situation.
Well, if you're a member of the public and you are still listening to CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, or reading the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, all of that is controlled. It's propaganda. It is shaping your life narrative, intentionally so. As for the government reactions to that, I was very disappointed to see a continuation of the dismissal of these events by the Trump administration's press secretary. I can guess why they decided, despite the campaign promise to immediately address that issue, to not. Has to do with geopolitical situations we are currently involved in, and the fact that we are living through a constitutional crisis related to this issue.
Just seems to me that it is a worse thing to say these might be foreign surveillance drones, and there's not a damn thing we can do about it. We can't track them, we can't see them, we can't shoot them down. Than it is to say these are genuine unknowns. It seems like they're unknowns, not just some drone that the Chinese are floating off of New Jersey.
Well, there's an infection in our security thinking, which is that they're primicists. They must be on top. To admit weakness is to admit defeat. And to say you don't know what something is a pretty big signal of weakness. There's not much humility and a lot of arrogance driving, I think, these responses more so than any strategy.
Yeah, we got just, I want to defend footage real quick.
Yeah.
I got three things. So I want to defend footage. There's a lack of education about what people are seeing in thermal. So first of all, these are weapon systems. These aren't IMAX cameras.
Right.
So, but they're kind of better than an IMAX camera because you can see in the fucking dark. So I think there's an education process. And we've been trying with our reporting to teach people when you see something in thermal, what you're seeing is a heat signature. And that heat signature represents that shape and, of the heat. It's just I think it's an education process. It has to come from curiosity, but people need to be told what they're seeing. It's new to a lot of people. It was new to me when I started seeing military videos for the first time. So in defense of grainy, bad footage, people just need to understand what they're seeing to understand the impact if they're curious enough. Question, any country in this world could disclose at this point, a major country with technological development could disclose we are not alone in the universe. There are others. There's visitors who have been here a long time. Why? Why has everybody agreed to not say that to the public? Do you have any philosophies why?
I think in the West, this is the reaction. And that's an important distinction. I cannot comment so much on why Russia or China have not addressed this in a different way than us. But I think in the West, in the Five Eyes Alliance and its subsidiaries, there is a understanding, at least, that this is not talked about at official channels, especially if you're a small kid on the block.
Mm-hmm.
You don't speak out of turn. But it also points to, I think, the fact that this doesn't ultimately reside in the government anymore. This is held in an illegal internationalist regime, some sort of international cabal of sorts, mix of corporate, military, political, intelligence, and criminal interests that have come together, and they have subverted us and have taken this and have made it the source of their wealth and power.
So at Astronaut, Dr. Edgar Mitchell told me in one of the last films before he died, he used very similar words.
Well, that doesn't make me feel good.
Yeah, well, he was sure of it. You're a whistleblower, not a source to me and George. You're a whistleblower. We do want to help. I always hear whistleblowers are scared, and we know some people, the same people, but there's a lot that have come to us that you don't know. Are you scared? Are you scared now coming forward? Are you scared?
I mean, it comes in waves.
Okay.
So yes, but I make a conscious effort every day to not let fear rule my life and my deeds. So, yes, I'm scared, but this is the right thing. It's the necessary thing. And I was raised right.
You think that by talking to us, it's possible that you might have some protection in that if somebody cuts your brake lines and you go off a cliff, at least there's going to be somebody looking into it and raise some hell about it.
You know, if that happens, don't try too hard. Focus on the mission.
So this is more about people need to know than about your personal well-being.
Any regrets now?
I trusted too much, and I did not trust myself enough. Took some, I paid some prices, and I do not doubt that there are the seeds for future costs I'll have to pay in the future.
Describe for us the personal costs, the reality for you going forward, your outlook for ever working for the government again, for example, or with any kind of a job that requires a security clearance, personal costs to your marriage, your personal life.
Well, with the job with government, my career is dead. It has been dead for years now. I have a file on me. I will, even if I went back in, even if I chose to never do any of this and just keep working, I predict that I would have found my career stunted mysteriously as soon as it would have sought to advance into what I thought was a noble mission. Personally, it's hard to describe. That I've been doing this for about 4 years now. Only very recently have I had anyone to talk to about it in outside of like, hey, can you make this meeting happen? I've had no allies. That has changed. It's been a very painful, costly process to find allies, but I have them. There's more of us.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't stop.
Right.
You got to know some of these other whistleblowers who are still not public yet.
Correct.
But who are at least close to coming forward.
Yes.
Is there strength in numbers then in that regard?
Yes, and if all of us die or imprisoned, the seeds have been planted, more will come.
Well, those seeds have been planted about deaths in the whistleblower community. Those stories circulate, I would imagine, pretty quickly among you and people you know.
Yeah, but I'm still here.
You think anybody has been killed because they knew too much on this topic?
Yes, I believe and I think, and I could probably help someone else prove it.
Mm-hmm.
But lethal action has been taken against people that tried to get the truth out. Or maybe we're just considered wild cards, not able to be efficiently controlled, no longer useful. I think once you taste the darkness, you like using it.
They don't have to kill you. They could discredit you some way.
Oh, yeah.
Manufacture something.
Mm-hmm.
They asked you to come forward, and you even felt that you had a small piece to the puzzle, and you weren't even sure if it was worth it. And then you do that, and what you suffer is the consequences against your career. There's other things we're not saying that we suspect are related to you coming forward. God, that's got to hurt, man. That's got to be painful. They've asked you to come forward, and you tried all the ways to do that. We had to go to a little bit extreme measures to get the rest going. It's got to be painful.
Yeah, it is. I don't think it'll stop being, although hopefully time is its own salve. Mm-hmm. I'd like to spend that time with my wife, my family, not in a cell or in the ground. But, this is bigger than me. It's bigger than us. This is the fate of our people. And to me, I'm willing to pay that price.
Is it ironic you have to put your face out with us to protect yourself at this point? That's what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
This is absolutely what I did not want to do.
I know. I can attest to that. This is exactly what you did not want to do.
Correct.
Have you gamed it out in your head? What happens next? What will likely be, assuming we go forward with this interview and make it public, and that right now we don't know that that's the case, but when it comes out, if it comes out, what happens to you then? What are the risks?
Well, gaming it out, there's more than me. More will come. I could say more if I wanted to. Hopefully this rises to a level of public attention that demands it be addressed in a serious way. I can't cause that alone. Other people will, but more need to come. And I think at this point, I'd like to say directly to the members of our military and our intelligence community, the time is now where you must choose whether you honor your oath or your orders. And if you have courage, you already know the answer. But for the rest of you, lead, follower, get out of the way. Get out of the way.
We know people are coming forward, and we know we've recorded, George and I, with other people who will be coming forward. You know, so you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
But you say you could say more. Just explain that.
When I wrote this document, I've kind of given my state of mind and the measures I took to protect it. I'm also, familiar with ways that information can be extracted, that passwords and encryption don't matter. So I didn't write everything down.
So there are other bullets left to fire if you needed to.
Yeah. Talk about things getting lost in the shuffle. I highly doubt many members of the public read 11 pages, much less the first. Mm-hmm. But at the end, there's an interesting area. People might notice that it's out of order, too. Things are sequentially out of order. There's missing sections.
Mm-hmm.
And that one of that last sections, it says sensitive sources from mouth to ear.
Mm-hmm. We talked about keeping that in or what to, how far to go with.
What does that mean?
Well, exactly what it says. Those words were only spoken from my mouth to another's ear.
What is it like to have absolute knowledge that not only UFOs are real, that we've been hiding that our government has controlled that information away from the base human population, and that there is another intelligence that is engaging humanity straight up? What does that feel like, being one of the people that knows that and doesn't suspect that?
It's weird going to the supermarket.
Okay.
Even more, it's bizarre to work in government and see legions of people who have no clue about any of this, and no clue that they are being deceived.
Why should people believe you? I mean, I know what we've been through, but that's not public stuff to everybody, every step we've taken. Why should people believe what you're saying?
I was there. I saw it. I spent years researching it. If all that I'm consulting is passage material, then we are engaged in a massive deception against our own military and intelligence community that I was a victim of. And it would have been on a scale that probably would have been its own news story.
Oh, absolutely. Nonsensical madness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as a human being, why should people believe you?
Well, as a human being, I feel like I'm genuine, putting myself out there, sacrificing my future, my past, and a lot of what I have now to do this for no gain.
Yeah, you're getting nothing from us. We're just reporting because it's an important story.
And you're telling it because it's true.
Absolutely. It is true. And I can't think of anything more pressing for our nation to come to terms with than the fact that we have been deceived and our rights taken away to protect the privileges of an elite few.
You're not.
I am not going to live my life knowing that I could have helped prevent another generation of America and humanity from living in ignorance.
So let's just separate, for our audience and people kind of meeting you for the first time. So there's certain stuff you were exposed to in an official capacity that you've come to conclusion on and that you know to be correct, know to be true. Then there are extrapolations and philosophies and ideas from other types of sourcing of information. And we can talk about that kind of in a separate realm. And I value your opinion. I think people will too, because of your exposure to certain things you're saying and not saying. Okay. But if we're talking just about our ideas now.
You have thoughts about big picture stuff, who they are. Is it more than one they? Is it us from the future, ETs, interdimensionals? Do you think there's anybody in government who knows? And if they do know, is there any reason why this should stay secret? Or at least some of it should stay secret that the public cannot handle?
No. The only reason for secrecy is fear and greed. And that is the paradigm that we must confront and overcome. As for the public and what their reaction might be to this information, good, bad, indifference, I think we already have our answer. It's going to be indifference. Unless the stakes are made clear.
You're an absolutist. You like rip the Band-Aid off.
There's no Band-Aid. There's no wound. This is not about protecting, healing. This is about power and control. This isn't about trying to save what's good. It's about getting rid of what's evil.
Power and control, meaning controlling the technology and what it would mean.
Those are just means. Controlling humanity.
Everything. Do you suspect that there are reverse engineering programs, that there have been crashes, that there are attempts to replicate that technology? You got hints of it in the ARV or RV, that we're trying to build what these things can do. Do you think we've done it, that we've accomplished it? Somebody?
Yeah, I think we've absolutely replicated some of these capabilities in inferior forms, and oftentimes maybe disaggregated from what was at once a unitary system, but we're only able to do a small part what that system does.
We've seen people say they think that the Tic Tac is something we had 21 years ago. And I'm wondering, well, where the hell is it? I mean, if we have this technology, we've done some of it to get even inferior versions of it. Is that something that's going to be incorporated into the U.S. military arsenal, or is it something that's outside of it, that's controlled by somebody who's not using it for national defense?
I think the U.S. military might be allowed to use some of this technology in the national defense, but I don't think they ultimately have control over it.
This is a kind of arms race. It's a technology race. Whoever gains the ability to effectively weaponize this, they win. We know that UFOs, due to the propulsion systems, are a matter of national security and weapons of mass destruction. And we know that. We don't think that. We met with people that deal with that, right? Do you agree with that? Do you think that we are in a race with China and Russia? There's other countries competing to weaponize this. And do you think that's a problem? Because you've dealt with weapons of mass destruction in your official career.
I think strategic deterrence has migrated out of, has evolved from being relying on nuclear weapons as the pinnacle. I believe we have, and others have developed the means to maybe utilize nuclear reactions to create some very dangerous effects through directed energy.
Your concern is directed energy weaponry.
Among many. But when it comes to WMDs and relations to this technology, I think we have been successful in both deriving new science that we have then suppressed to preserve a strategic advantage. And I think I probably don't want to talk too much more about deterrence.
Somebody was flying these things that crashed. Somebody built these things that are being reverse engineered. Who's that somebody? And why don't they come forward? I mean, you may not have seen that in a document or a file or something somewhere, but you've thought about it. You're a smart guy. What are your thoughts on the big picture questions? Who are they? Why are they here? Why don't they show us what's going on?
I think I have a good degree of confidence that the reason they're here is us. I think life, especially sentient life, is a precious thing. And I think to some, it might be a resource. I think humanity to some level is a resource for them.
Like a commodity?
Possibly a commodity, possibly a form of entertainment, possibly medical related.
Think they live here?
Yes.
For all intents and purposes?
Yes.
Always?
I don't know about always, but it certainly appears that they have been here for most of recorded history. At least some element of this has been here for most of human recorded history.
You think we would see them if they didn't let us see them? Even with our more advanced sensors, that they pop up, but they can also disappear. And do they allow us to get these glimpses? Is that a game of some sort, I wonder? Or an education process?
It's a bizarre one that I could not understand if it is a game. I think they're both just as powerful as we think, but also less. And I think there is not a single they here. Certainly multiple factions of the same species, if not multiple species. And all the complexity that brings, which might be our best hope.
Do they have an agenda? There's different types. What are your philosophies on this? Like, who are the others? Why are they here? And you've touched upon it. I know we're kind of going back a little bit, but that is the big question. And I just wanted to separate so people understand your exposure and your personal conclusions.
So I have been exposed to no direct information on the anatomy, biology, intentions, culture, politics.
Never came across those files?
Never came across those. I think those are all some of the deepest secrets.
Right. They would be if this is correct information.
What I have learned is that we live in a dream, a carefully constructed reality. We make use of a science that is tightly controlled and suppressed and distorted. I think we are left behind.
Humans.
I think normies, the normal humans, the people have been left behind. Us. People need to understand that we might have freedom of speech, but that has been subverted. We do not have freedom of inquiry. We are blocked from learning what we need to know. Just in the public world, we are blocked from advancing in science. We are taught false science intentionally to prevent us from learning more. We live in the Matrix. It's just much more boring than the movie.
I think about whistleblowers like yourself. You're about to find out, assuming we release this, you're about to find out what the price is for coming forward. And there are other people in the same kind of position who are wondering what they should do, who are basically being held in limbo. They worked in classified programs their whole life. That's what they do. That's what pays their bills. And they're held in limbo, and that's held over their heads so they don't come forward. And they're debating taking the same steps as you. There is no hope or help for anything like folks like that? Is there? I mean, we've heard promises. We'll help whistleblowers come forward. We'll give them support. There are private equity funds and organizations that say they're going to help, but we haven't seen shit so far, have we? And have you?
No, I've reached out directly to institutions that claim that they are here to help UAP whistleblowers specifically, both in the process of coming forward and any sort of stability afterwards. It's been radio silence. At best, at worst, one of those institutions has stolen my information. There is no organized help for whistleblowers. It is all controlled. It is all at either the special interest of industry that wants to get in on this, or by the existing powers that be.
Intelligence agencies who have infiltrated or created these things.
Correct.
I have directly experienced that, sadly, over this last year, which is the vacuuming up of intelligence on people such as yourself who are trying to do the right thing as whistleblowers, as well as anything that reporters could possibly obtain and release. And it is a treacherous moment in our history of this. You did a call to action to people. You told them this, it's time, move forward. I know that you had some encouragement with David Grush. I hope people are encouraged, also by you. Look, man, if you were to die tomorrow because of whatever reason, what do you want people to know right now? Like, what do you want people to know if you're just like fucking on?
You are not free. And this reality has far more to it than you have been allowed to believe. And God is real.